I have just returned from almost 3 weeks in Europe, and I wanted to show you some of the things that I bought that I think you'll find really interesting. And then after that, we're going to do a little sketch kind of based on the things that I'm showing you. I'm working in ink and wash today, and the things that I bought are all about ink and wash. So, and in case you don't know, ink and wash means ink and watercolor, but it's a wash of watercolor rather than really precise, although it can be. So the first one is this children's book called En Fuite, which means on the run. And I picked it up in a department store in Paris. I should probably tell you where I went. I spent about a week in Paris, and then a couple of nights in Vienna, and then I went to Slovakia, eastern Slovakia, very close to Poland, to visit my niece. And while I was in Paris, I went to a big department store that has a whole floor of stationery and art supplies. And I saw this children's book, and I just was so taken with the ink and wash drawings because they're fun and goofy. And so I wanted to just point out a couple of things. One of them is how the lines on the buildings are so not ruler straight. And that actually gives it charm. Like if you look at the rooftop here, it portrays kind of a mood for the whole story. And you can see here too, the drain pipe that's like kind of bent and this funny shaped roof. And of course the characters themselves are very comic, but you can see also this drain pipe going down here. It's got that sort of wiggly jiggly kind of look to it. Another example is these buildings here. So there's a couple of towers, but you can see they're in no way straight, but it doesn't matter because it still portrays the building and the tower and the clock, and this is cute and fun, and so I'm going to do a building today. I'm going to draw a building today, and I just want to say, keep in mind that it doesn't have to be perfectly straight or, you know, picture perfect. And the other one that I bought that I think you'll really enjoy is Dessiner la France. This is Make Your Own Travel Journal. And she uses, this is colored pencil, but this artist, it's actually a kind of a how-to book. She uses a lot of watercolor and ink. And there's a little bit of a story about her, and I've been reading through it. My French isn't spectacular, but I can pretty much, this is fairly simple, and I can pretty much get the meaning. And if I'm stuck, I use Google Translate, which is brilliant. But she goes actually on a trip around France. There's a map of it here somewhere that shows all the different places. So it is like a travel journal, and in each place she draws some different things that I guess you could say mean something to her. So this is the first leg of the journey. But I wanted to just go over here, and you can just pick up some tips here too, like things like this, and the brush, and the wash, and the frame, and the writing, and everything. You can say, okay, well, I would like to have that in my work, and you can appropriate it. So here's a village, a very, very sketchy one. In this one, she's added a lot more detail. And in this one, she's added even more detail and color, but started like this. So that's a good idea. And then she's got some little spots here where she shows how she's done the drawing. This one is colored pencil again. But one of the things that kind of clinched it for me to buy the book was pictures like this. And I love that look of ink and wash, but not only that, you can tell again with her drawings that she's not really aiming for perfection, especially in the main one. And she shows you here how to do the measurements. So it's based on this square, and then she adds the second one, and then she adds the angles and everything else. So you can kind of follow along with the details of how the thing came together. There's also architectural details like that, but when I saw the windows, I thought, okay, this is cool. And I love the way she shows step by step without a lot of fanfare and description. So to make a window, this is the side with the shadow in it, and she just adds and adds and adds, and voila, there you have it. And same here, you can see all these different windows that she has drawn. And then this is so cool because it starts out with the wash first. So she puts down just some splashy washes with different colors and then starts to draw on top of them. And you can see the development of the drawing with more and more detail, because here she's got the half-timbered building, but at this point she's also added more color and more definition to different things. So before this didn't have the timbers, and now it does in this one, and she's added more detail everywhere. So it's a fun way to kind of start. Here's another one starting with just basic sketches with watercolor and then adding after that the buildings and everything else. So there's so many different ways you can do these kind of things, but I thought I'd share that with you. And now I want to get started on a drawing as well. So I'm going to use this 005 micron pen. It's black ink, and it's very fine because I like the look of fine. One thing I wanted to point out about in this book is that a lot of the ink isn't black. It's actually, some of it is, but the lines are very, very light. But I was looking at something else recently. Oh, I have a book of sketchbooks through the ages that my daughter gave me for Christmas, and a lot of the ink was sepia, which is a kind of pale brown. Anyway, this is my reference for this drawing, and I'm not going to even attempt to make it look exactly like this because I want to take into account some of those other styles where the lines are more wiggly and less structured. But first I wanted to look at proportions so that I can kind of use that. But I mean, I really don't need to. So what I did was I went, okay, how big is this? It turns out it's 1.5 centimeters there, and it's also about 1.5 centimeters there, and then from here to the peak is about closer to just 1 centimeter. However, this is just something to look at. I am going to make it much bigger size, and I'm going to make it a little more, well, artistic. But also, I've mentioned in my other videos when we're drawing with ink is to start with the thing that's closest to you. So in this case, we've got grasses and flowers here, a pot and whatever, and then the stairs, and then the pots on the little deck here, and the hanging baskets, which would be closer to you than this wall behind and the chimney and everything else. So in order not to have to draw over those things, you have to start with them at the front. So I'm going to just keep this really simple and just make some kind of sketchy marks and then fill it in however I like, because this is kind of just a pattern of where I want things to go. So we've got the steps here like this. I think there's 4 or 5 of them, and if they're a little bit crooked, doesn't matter because of the style that I'm working on here. So I can come back in here and put the uprights in, which I would normally do. I'm partly trying to keep this from being too long a video. And then I've got the sort of balcony. I'm just going to put or not the balcony, the deck of the house, front of the house. And I'm going to just put that in No, I'm not going to put anything there, but I want these little flower pots here. So you can see this is very sketchy, but the lovely thing about watercolor and line is that any style you work with really ends up being beautiful. So I'm going to make my door kind of long because I want it to be. And if it's not perfectly square, or you know, the lines aren't perfectly straight, that's fine. And then we've got a window here. So basically I'm elongating this house, this and then I've got these panes in here. So rather than draw lines, I'm going to just draw the panes, and the lines will show where they are. It's not exactly great, but that doesn't matter. And now up here I've got these hanging baskets, so they kind of come out around here. I came home from Europe with a cold. Everybody around me seemed to be sick, and my niece and my sister and my other niece and everybody was sick. And I managed to actually skip it until about 4 days before I came home, and then it hit me. There are my hanging baskets, and my rooftop comes down here. This is kind of in the way. So I'm going like this. Wait, I want to make the peak kind of high. So let's say about there. And if you use dots and your pen for measurement, you also have to trust your measurements. So when I go here to here is, well, that's about an inch basically. So I can go here to here and add about an inch. That means the roof should end in the flower pot here, which is okay. And now just the eaves like this. And then I've got, what, a little window up here. Oops, that's not very straight. More flowers in a window box. A little window, again with some panes in it. And I think I might leave off that little other roof, but I'll put this chimney in here. Like that. And then, let me see, where's this house go? I'll add a little bit there too. And then we've got foliage on the ground like this. We've got another, I'm going to just hang those things from something here. The problem with I have was my lines, it's better if I come at it from the side sometimes, otherwise they go kind of uphill or something, because of the angle I'm at. So we've got some boards along here, which I'll just sketch in. And then I want some long skinny windows. So now part of the way you keep everything kind of loose and not uptight is by going quickly. So let's see. I'm going to do this middle one first. They're still not coming out very even, but that's okay. And then another window over here, approximately this level. You can use as much or as little detail as you want. It's entirely up to you how it works for you. I'm trying to go kind of fast here, so if I slowed down, I could make things more accurate. And we've got some slats and stuff on the bottom here, which I think are fun to add, because it's adding detail, right? Just little boards. I think this is like board and batten. Now keep in mind that I can add more detail with the paint. So I need a little doorknob here. I feel like the door needs a little bit more detail, so I'm going to make it one of those sort of Dutch doors like that. And now I also want some more foliage in here, just some different things like this. So these little details actually kind of add to the charm of the picture. And I love sort of charming, whimsical things, as you probably figured out by now. There, you can see this is really pretty sketchy, and that's just fine. That's how I wanted it. And I guess I should attach it here to the house. All right, I'm going to leave the rest of the work up to the watercolors. So for that, I want to start with some pinks and reds with the flowers. So I'm going straight into the color and not really mixing anything until I sort of get there. You see how little work you really have to do to make it work. Do I want them all pink? I think I'll make some of them yellow. That's enough. Put a little more of this pink in. Okay, that didn't come out very nice. This shouldn't be happening, but the black is actually running a little bit. Probably it just needs to dry because it's permanent ink, so it shouldn't be picking up the black at all. But because I'm kind of rushing from one thing to the next here for the sake of the video, I'm getting a little bit of that bleeding. All right, I'm going to leave that right there and move on to something else. Just make sure that you can see everything that's going on over here. And again, I'm just doing a really sketchy job here because I want to partly show how much you can do in a short amount of time. So say you've got 15 minutes before you have to do something else. You actually can make a drawing. I think a lot of times we stop ourselves from doing things because we say we don't have time. But if you make it a habit to just have something ready that you can work on at a moment's notice, then you basically make a lie out of the I don't have time thing. So this is Naples Yellow Red I'm using here, which is kind of a weird color, but I like it. Just going to add a little bit of this other color in here so there's some variation in the wood. Now I could paint this little house any color I want to. It doesn't have to be like that. In fact, I should have made it blue or something just to please myself because I like blue. In fact, I think I will do that right now. And I don't think I want that blue. No, I don't want that blue. I want more of an ultramarine blue. Actually, I want cerulean blue. So I'm going to just fill this in here with my blue quickly. And also, I'm going to make this front of the eaves blue too. So when I was away, I went to Paris for a week. I met my sister and my niece there. And I was in Paris with them. Well, my niece went home after about 4 days, and I stayed on with my sister for a couple more days. And then we flew to Vienna for 2 nights. Had basically 1 full day there. So we packed in as much as we could. Okay, I'm going to put in this sort of this color again down in here. And in between these boards, because I want to put the blue in the boards. So I actually hadn't intended to go to Europe at all. I had no plan. But my sister had a plan, and she texted me one day in December and said, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Switzerland, and I'm going to go to Paris, blah, blah, blah. She lives near Montreal, so she's like bopping over there all the time. Totally, totally innocently, I said, do you want me to come too? It was meant to be a joke. And she said, sure. So she kind of called my bluff, I guess you could say. So I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't I? Because I'm a real saver, and I save my money for traveling mostly. And I would prefer not to travel alone, but my husband doesn't always want to go, and you know, I want to do things he doesn't want to do, and he's fine with that. And then so I thought, well, she seems to be fine with me going, and he's fine with me going, and I have the funds because I've been saving for it. Why not go? The little house is coming along, isn't it? I think I'm going to make this bottom part blue. Now, we have shadows in this, and I can't put those on till everything is super dry, so I'm just basically not going to do it. Anyway, Paris was cold, and it was really only around freezing, but it was humid enough that everything felt really cold. And so I made a sort of observation and a little bit of a future plan, which is why don't you go to warm places when it's cold and cold places when it's warm. So I'm just popping in some green here. My other colors are still pretty wet, but like I said, I don't want this to take forever. And then I need some darkness underneath the stairs, so I'm going to put this in, which is just left over in my palette. It's probably Payne's Gray, because Payne's Gray is kind of a dark blue gray, but I want a shadow under here and some shadows around here as well underneath the foliage. And I also want my pots to look like pots, so mostly they're usually this sort of terracotta color. So I'm going to pop all that in there. Anyway, I went to some museums and went out for coffee and had hot chocolate for breakfast and croissants and pain au chocolat, which is like a croissant with chocolate in it. And now I'm just going to use a marker to put the blue on these slats, because I can do it with a fine brush, but let's face it, it's easier to draw it in. So everybody in Paris was like bundled to the eyeballs. My door, I want to put a bit more color on my door. This one will do. And frankly, a lot of them looked like they didn't have warm enough coats. I was going to take a lighter coat, and just before I went, I was kind of going back and forth. What coat should I take? And I happened upon some videos that were current about Paris, and I noticed that everybody was wearing a parka. So I took my heavy winter coat, and boy was I glad. Let's just get some more of that here. Take some of the water off of it and put it in on my windows so that they're not like bright white. Now, if you wanted to, you could make this kind of look your entire style. You could illustrate a children's book, you could create art for licensing, you could do all kinds of things. Or you could just do it for fun and have a sketchbook full of art that you created yourself to show your kids or your grandchildren or whoever, or just nobody. Just don't show anybody. And just do it for your own joy and enjoyment. Bricks on my thing here, chimney. And now I can put shadow in here. And it's going to be, I like purple for shadows. But it doesn't have to be very dark because put a little bit of Payne's gray in there. And take a bunch of that moisture out. I have these paper towels over here. One way to take the moisture out without taking the color out is to just press the back of the brush to it, and then you've got it still left in there. So there's a shadow there, and there's a shadow here. Having shadows actually gives a little kind of a life to it. So let's see if this is dry enough. I think that looks good. And then we've got a bit of shadow here from the flowers. And even down in here. So that took about a half an hour. Now the steps. Yes, I should paint the steps. And this piece along here. There, I think I've got everything kind of done. So, like I said, this took about a half an hour, and it's easy to do. Just kind of flow with it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So if I stop comparing it to the picture, it kind of takes on a different quality or a personality, and I really like that, because otherwise you judge your work against something else. So I'm going to put this out of my sight so that I don't judge the work against it, and then I can go, you know what, I really like this. It's fun, it's different, and it's sort of free flowing. I don't know why I'm getting paint everywhere, but I better quit. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Please check below in the description. You find a link to my website, and you can have, I'm actually still working on it. It needs to be updated and everything, but you might want to get on my mailing list, because I usually send something out every week, and you might find that really interesting. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.